Hey everybody, Edo here, and I am excited because I have Fertessa Allyse online. Say hello.
Hello. Thanks for having
And
me on.
thank you. And you're doing a lot of stuff. We were just talking about this, but so you have a game, game designer, live on Kickstarter now, Book of Villainy, and that's for just like another 2 days. So I'll put the description in the link. Everyone should check it out. We'll talk more about it in a few minutes. Book of Villainy, and then you have Wicked and Wise, which is going to be with Weird Giraffe Games as the designer in a month or two when the kick's sometime in August. You
Yeah.
also have Mansplaining with Breaking Games, which is hitting retail. Was that next year,
Yeah.
early next year?
Yeah. Early next year at latest.
Yeah, and then also you are a games producer for Funko Games, right?
Yep.
All
That
right,
is
so
correct.
that's a lot. That is a lot of game designs to sort of burst onto the scene with, so to speak. And so one of the things that I'm always curious about when we have folks on the channel is just sort of like, what was your journey? Like, how did you get into games, and then which came first, these designs or Funko or together? Like, what's that story?
Yeah. So I got into the hobby about 5 years ago in 2017. I've always played games, but they were always kind of the Monopoly. And later, eventually, I found Catan, but nobody to play with. And then in 2017, me and two other friends that like to play games, we started to get together a little bit. And through one of them thinking about designing a board game, that got me started thinking about like what kind of board game I would make if I could. And in trying to like pursue that answer, that both sent me down the rabbit hole for game design as well as hobby games. Um, so my very first design that I worked on is actually Book of Villainy. And I worked on that for a good 2 years before I started pitching it. And I was able to get it signed with Gold Seal Games. And then after I got that signed, that's when I allowed myself to work on Wicked and Wise, my second game.
So hold on just for a second. So at this point,
Uh-huh.
Funko isn't a topic. You're
Yeah.
just somebody who plays games,
Yeah.
starts playing games with other people who play games, and then one of them's a designer. You're like, what if I designed a game? And then
Yeah.
can you just quickly, because a lot of folks fit that category of like want to get their first design out, right?
Yeah.
And so what, like, maybe this was, it sounds like maybe this was 2018, or I don't know what the year was, but like probably pre-COVID. Were you
Yeah.
like taking it out to conventions? Like, what did you do to get Book of Villainy in front of Gold Seal Games?
Yeah. So it was summer 2017, and one of the first things I did was like make a BGG work in progress thread for it, where you can see like the entire diary for me making this game. When I first had the idea, I actually was really thinking about it at work because I was working a desk job, 9 to 5. That had nothing to do with games. And I literally went downstairs to the CVS, bought construction paper, and made my first
nice.
prototype during my lunch break. And that was like my first prototype. I played it myself, and I was like, this kind of works. And I got my friends to play it, and they're like, yeah, this kind of works. And that like got me rolling onto like how to make it better, and you know, tossing in like better prototypes and using Photoshop to make those. But that kind of snowballed because as I tried to get things updated on my work in progress thread on BGG, I would also make threads asking questions, and I would also go out to different gaming groups because I realized that I didn't know how to make things happen because I had a very limited understanding of different game mechanics at that point. So I joined like 3 different gaming groups just so that I could be playing a new game every week, several new games every week. Like every game was a new game to me. That's still kind of true. And I like immersed myself in podcasts. Again, it was a desk job, so I could just listen to 8 hours of podcasts every day. On top of playing these games at meetups, and eventually I took my prototype to an anime convention because I didn't even know at that point about board game conventions. I didn't know how big the hobby was. So I went to my local anime convention because that was something that I frequented, and they had a gaming section. and I set up there. And actually, because I was set up there, I didn't even have a sign. I was just sat there with my game. And another local game designer, David Lupo, approached me. He was like, "Are you a game designer?" And like from there, he introduced me to all of the like board game conventions in Georgia and some of the local designers there, and I was able to kind of make those connections. And one of those game conventions was Proto ATL, which Andrew from Gold Seal Games co-runs.
Right. And ATL for
that
Atlanta,
was-
I assume.
Yeah. Sorry,
Awesome.
yeah, ATL for Atlanta.
No, I just and well, so let me interrupt you because I think we've interviewed a lot of designers over the years, or I have, I guess, and like it looks like you did all the right things, right? Like you dove headfirst in, you exposed yourself to playing tons and tons of games and getting more familiar with gaming and joining local gaming groups. You got involved in a design community. I mean, there's a design community on BGG and Reddit, on Facebook. I mean, they're all over the place. But where you're working and sort of sharing your progress and not necessarily, sometimes designers get closed in and they don't want anyone to steal their ideas or whatever, and they don't. But like letting people in and learning and engaging. And then you took it to a convention, right? And it sounds like in the most sort of humble / like I just sat at a table and, but then you met somebody who was in the industry who had more exposure. And then that person was like, hey, let me show, like, I think it just speaks to, not just needing to be able to design a game, but doing those steps to both expose yourself to new ideas and mechanics and games and people, but then also having the opportunity to see what you're doing and then, saying, hey, you didn't know it. There's a proto spiel next thing. You should bring it to the proto spiel. Okay, so you're back. We're back on track. You bring it to Proto Spiel Atlanta or ATL, and Gold Seal Games is there. They play it, and they're like, and
Nope,
that
he
or
didn't.
he's like,
No, he didn't even play it then, because that was still very early on in the journey. I just met him as the person who ran the convention.
I see. Okay.
It wasn't until 2 years later.
Oh wow.
That I pitched to him formally, and I knew about Gold Seal Games. I ran the gamut of all of the Georgia conventions. Once I became aware of the board game conventions, I would sign up to go there and use a table to try and get people to play test. I would get family friends. I would recruit them to play because I wanted just new people who didn't understand the rules to play, and the game was changing all the time. And one thing that I did, because I wanted my game to kind of stand out, so I made these business cards, and I made like these fancy foil business cards that had like a picture of a villain on the back, and I would just hand them out. And even if people didn't have the best time, they were just like, "This is an amazing card.
That's a nice business card."
Like, so
foil goes a long way, I'll tell you. For the extra little, I just was looking at the Panda. I don't know if I have it around here. I was looking at the Panda print guide. This is their like paper. This is like how you print all their stuff, and it's showing off all. Like I look at it to see like stuff like that, and they have this like these punch outs that have foil on it, and you're just like, those are awesome,
right?
Yeah, I'm like, why haven't I put foil on my punch pieces yet? And then like, yeah. So okay, so actually,
it's just a little splurge.
Yeah. Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. I'm still in a place where Pencil First Games, just to digress, is like about like it's a game company, but it still has a little bit of the art side. So like to me, a lot of it's still like it's not perfect margin games. Which might be limiting in the long run. But, okay. So actually, you met, but you just continue for 2 years. 2 years is a long time working on the game, refining it, doing all that stuff. And then, okay, so you like formally pitch after your business cards are flying around and everyone's like, this is the coolest foil ever. Power foil. But you pitch and was it like was that your first pitch? Had you done a bunch? Talk about that phase a little bit.
So I didn't feel comfortable pitching for those 2 years. And finally, when I did feel comfortable, it was after I entered a game design contest, an online contest for board game design workshop. And after I managed to place as a finalist in that contest, I finally was just like, okay, I think I'm good enough to start pitching. So what I did is I didn't know any actual publishers at the time, because I met Andrew, but again, at that point, I didn't know he was a publisher.
Sure.
And so the only way I could go about it, because I'm introverted, was to sign up for events where they specifically ask for pitching, because I've seen
like speed
publisher,
dating and those type of things. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, okay, but hold on a second. So I got to
no
back
one
up. You just described yourself as introverted, which I
Yes.
I appreciate. This is the first time we've met, so I believe you. But that what you described leading up to this point is not what I would describe as an introverted thing, right? You're like, I did this, I joined this group, I did all these extroverted things. So I think a lot of designers are introverts and folks struggle with that. How did you sort of overcome being both introverted but wanting to get out and engage with all these groups? Like, how did you is there any tips or tricks you have in that regard?
So for me, that is how much that I love board games, that I was able to get out of my comfort zone, because the only way that I could comfortably engage with strangers is through board games.
Got it.
So that was helpful. As far as play testing, the hardest part for me was actually going to the conventions, not knowing anyone, and actually trying to get people to come to my table, and not feel like a salesman. Like, I always felt like I was bothering someone. So I would literally just sit there and kind of wait until they came directly next to me and looked like they wanted to ask. And I'd be like, this is my game. This is Book of Villainy. Otherwise, I would just sit there like a sad potato. And it went on like that. That's probably why the process also took so long, because I wasn't the most effective with marketing in person. But
but you had those foil cards.
Right? I was like, I put them there to draw people over, and I would bring candy. I did all the things to try and get people to come to my table without me actually verbally having to do it. At one point, I was thinking about wearing a costume, but it was too embarrassing. So for the other things that I did, the BGG diary, that's why that was easy for me, because that was something I could do on my computer, making a Twitter, joining online game design contests. These were all online.
Right.
So those were the things that I did. Was engaging online was a strength of mine. And then just hopefully the same people that saw my game, like people that saw my game online for the contest, they came over and like, oh, I remember this game, or I've seen the name of this game. And
it's a good name, by the way. And you had that from the beginning, it sounds like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There is value in a catchy name. That, like, you'll remember the name. Okay. But, I mean, this is like game one. So I sort of like want to, okay. So you eventually they say, yes, we'll do it. We'll sign it with you. We're going to do a Kickstarter. It's going to take some time.
Yeah.
So so then at some point in this is Mansplaining, right? And this is with breaking games. So this is a game that's going to be in Target, and like, they're big on their model. Like, how did I don't know if you met if it was Peter or Sharon, or like, how did you Shannon? Sherry. Oh man, she's gonna like literally stab me. Sherry, I haven't spoken to her in a long time. She's a wonderful person, but she's an aggressive person, but a wonderful person. So how did you? How do we shift into that gear?
Okay, so after I got Book of Villainy signed in 2019, I started working on Wicked and Wise, which was my second game. I started working on that game, let's say, in October, and then by December, I had it signed.
That was pretty quick. Way quicker.
Yeah.
Amazingly quicker. It's another catchy name, by the way, which stuck all the way through to the final.
I have fun naming the games. But for Wicked and Wise, that one was also answering a theoretical question of, like, if I made a cooperative game that I actually would enjoy, what would that look like? And I was like, it would look like Spades. How do we, like, play off of that? So I started working on that, and by that point, I had met some publisher friends, and I was friends with Carla, and I just coincidentally just play tested it with her. She was actually the very first play test, like real play test that I did with the game, and I was like, "I'm sorry, it's a dumpster fire," and she was like, "Even though it's a dumpster fire, I see this is a game. This is a good game," and I was. She didn't call it dumpster fire, but I did. But at that point, I was just like, okay, I have a game here, even without like not having the rules actually written down. And from there, I took it to Metatopia.
Okay, sure.
And I played it a second time with Julie Ahern and 2 other people that sat down to play, and they also gave some great feedback, and it kind of went word of mouth, and they took me from person to person. Like Julie introduced me to John, and John introduced me to Gil, and it was just a lot of people that got to play Wicked and Wise. And after like that whole gamut, that whole weekend, eventually I ended up partnering with Carla, and we decided to make Wicked and Wise and get that signed. So yeah, that one was a lot quicker.
Because I got my timeline because I had assumed that it would take longer to do it, but it sounds like that was just a really quick turnover.
Yeah, it was more that I guess the thing that makes that game special was very clear earlier on, but it still took a good year and a half of development to get to the point that it is now. So it's still like the identity is still there, but it is an entirely different game. I love what it's become.
Still cooperative?
Yes. Well, it's team-based cooperative. So you are teamed up. And I consider team-based to be cooperative and competitive.
Well, that's a good way of doing it. It's one way to solve that problem.
Yes. So, yes, it still has that, which was the core. And then after I signed Wicked and Wise, a pandemic had hit. We started doing the development for Wicked and Wise digitally. And I want to say, I don't even know what month it was into the pandemic, but another game designer from Atlanta reached out to me, Mondo Davis, and he was interested in collaborating in creating a party game about mansplaining. And I was like, okay, I never thought I'd be interested in doing that, but yeah, let's take a swing at it. And we actually hashed it out over a couple of emails. And like in 2 weeks, we had made the first prototype. And then after about 2 months of playtesting, we were ready to pitch. We did some cold calls to see if some publishers were interested, and didn't quite get any hits, any bites. But then we did the feedback frenzy, which is kind of like a simulation of Shark Tank with
sure.
Wise Wizard Games. And through there, one of the contestants saw our pitch for mansplaining and was just like, you need to talk to Sherry. And I was just like, I don't know who Sherry is, but sure. And they're just like, we're going to send you an introductory email. And like that same day, he set up an email from us to her and said, you have to look at their game, Mansplaining. And like within 2 weeks of that, we got it signed with Breaking Games.
Awesome. Yeah, Sherry certainly knows how to, she'll just decide, and that'll be that. They're a large organization, but she is the boss in that regard. And so, I think that, that's awesome, right? And knowing nothing about the game, right? But like, presumably when you say party game and it's another catchy title, like I assume it's related to the game. But like, what I mean is for a Sherry, I feel like if you're like, what's like this target lineup with the types of games they have, like it definitely seems like somebody would be like, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so all of this is, but none of these games exist yet. They all exist in a pipeline that will result on tables eventually. So when did the Funko Games producer thing come in? Right? Like so all of this has happened. So you're like, really long time on my first game. 2 month turnaround on Witches and
Wicked and Wise.
Wicked Wise. Thank you, Wicked and Wise, but then a long development phase of refining the game. You're really happy at where it is. Then you partner on Mansplaining, and Breaking Games picks it up, and they're not going to do a Kickstarter. They're just like, hey, guess what? We're printing 50,000 copies of it. Get ready. And these in as a practical sense, in theory, I don't. All of this sort of manifests in 2022, right? In 2022, people have gone from never playing any of your games to seeing your name on 3 games.
Yep.
Okay. That's all happening. And then so next to that, in parallel, what's the story for the Funko stuff?
So last January, or rather, because I guess last January is this January. Last January, I visited my best friend in Seattle with my my partner, and we're kind of tossing around the idea of moving to a different state. And my lease was going to be up like that fall. So when I visited Seattle, I was just like, I love this place. Yeah, I could definitely live here. And I'd never felt like that about any particular state. I was just neutral, even to the state I lived in. So once I decided to go there, I was like, well, big problem. I need a job. Also, pandemic is like, it hadn't started yet. It was like the whispers of the pandemic had started when I had taken that vacation.
Sure,
and
January,
then and then as soon as I came home, things just went downhill. But while that was happening, I was trying to figure out like how I was going to job hunt, because I honestly didn't think I'd have a career in board games until I was nice and retired and I could just do that.
And which is not an unreasonable thing to think, right? Like there aren't as many folks who are like, no, I'm full-time board gaming, like is not as common. But keep going. So you didn't think it was possible.
Yeah, I didn't think it was possible. Like everything, all the podcasts, everybody was just like, it's not feasible. It's really hard to live off of that by yourself. But I put myself out there. I joined Seattle groups, gaming groups, on top of the Discord groups that I was on. Every time it came up in conversation, I'm moving to Seattle. And, if you're, somebody to work in games or do some freelance stuff, that'll be cool too. And eventually, one of my acquaintances, she reached out and she was like, are you still moving to Seattle? And I was like, yeah. I don't know if you know Cassandra, but she
Cassandra, what's her last name?
Yeah. Weaver, but W.
I think we're talking. I mean, that Cassandra lived in California. I mean, if it's I feel bad, man. So for those who don't know, Whittaker. For those who don't know, I'm actually terrible with names. I'm like totally a emotions, memories, and motion, sort of the dynamics of a situation rather than the specifics. But like if it's a Cassandra, I'm thinking about it, I know her really well. So I'm sorry that I can't remember. It's just like I don't know how to pronounce that name. I'm just gonna not worry about it until now. Okay,
love
so
cats and have glasses. That's
yeah. Okay, and so she because she was in the California area, and then perhaps in Seattle. But so was she working for Funko or just something else?
Yeah,
go on.
She works for Funko. So she let me know about a position and asked if I'd be interested in interviewing for it. So she put me in touch with the director there, Deirdre, and I was able to get an interview, which I was offered a contract position with Funko. So that was just like, yes, that was maybe 3 months before I had to move.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah. So, and I was able, because it was working from home, I was able to start working, and I actually worked 2 full-time jobs by last month.
So you started when you were still employed.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And I wouldn't sleep, but I enjoyed it so much. And then like once I finally moved, I just solely focused on the games. I was like, am I doing this right? Is this like a thing I'm doing? Like
You're doing
Should
it.
I be enjoying it this much? Oh my God.
And her last name is Whittaver, if that's how you
Yes.
pronounce it. And it is the same Cassandra. I was like, I'm going to just check before. But yes, I actually, Cassandra's great. We've hung out a lot, actually.
Yes.
She worked for Eagle Griffin for a while, I think.
Okay. Yes.
Or some Eagle Griff thing. All right. So you're working both, and then, but okay, so you're finishing up your current job, you're working this other job, you're pitching all these games, you're like, you're doing tons of hours, doing tons of stuff, which I think is like emblematic of what I try not to say. I don't like saying what it takes, but it's a reflection on people who are like dive in deep and love what they're doing and end up engaging in all sorts of ways all the time, right? Like, and I think there is a lot of opportunity comes from just going all in terms of engaging with folks and going to conventions and working what you can do. But I don't know that many game producers. Like, that's pretty amazing. And Funko's not, is a legit company, right? And so at some point you moved to you're in Seattle now, right?
Yeah, I'm in Seattle now. I moved here 9 months ago.
Oh, okay, so it's been a while. Mm-hmm. And has it lived up to? I mean, you're like, it's like the hottest month in record of all time. Though I guess compared to Georgia, I mean, like, this shouldn't be hot heat that's too crazy for you compared to somebody from Seattle, or is it?
It's so the only reason why it's crazy is because it's hitting the hundreds, and Seattle is the least air conditioned city in the United States. Right. So there's no AC, and in Georgia, the AC stays on. Every apartment, even the crappy ones, are equipped with the AC and pools, but that's not here.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm from New York originally, and I'm living in California, and it'll be like 30 degrees here, which is nothing in New York, or 40 degrees here. Yeah. But there's no insulation on any of the buildings. It's all made out of paper. And so it's so cold, but just because it's not that cold. But okay, so you just don't have the AC in the pools. That's the problem.
Yes. And I'd be fine with just the AC. I can drink water, and that is my pool.
Right. But setting that aside, how are you liking it?
Oh, I love it. Like, I'm not leaving Seattle, unless the sun, just global warming, decides to destroy it. But I am loving the West Coast. I walk around much more. I wasn't an outdoor person, but I'm kind of an outdoor person here because you can walk everywhere. And, generally, I'd say 98% of the times the weather agrees with me. So, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, except this week.
Yes.
And so I guess, okay, being a Funko Games producer, what is that job? Is it, I mean, I could make some guesses, but why don't you just tell me? What is the, like, I could describe video game production or game development. I'm just curious, what does it mean at Funko, and what do you do?
Yeah. So, game producer, like, the main thing is that you're doing project management. So, like, you'll be assigned a game and you have to see it through from beginning to end and make sure it hits all of its deadlines while it's being made. Make sure the art's made on time, packaging, and, that the designs are progressing and being play tested as they're needed. And it, hits the factory. All the files hit the factory when they should. But because Funko has such a kind of a unique organization, like, everything is credited to Funko Games, or formerly Prospero Hall. If you didn't know, it was formerly Prospero Hall. Now it's Funko Games.
Oh, they acquired them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Prospero Hall, they did Villainy, right? Am I crazy?
Villainous, yeah.
Villains, yeah. Keep going.
So the interesting thing is, like, the back of the box, it'll attribute it to the company because everybody works on the game. So even though you may have the role of the producer, you also have the opportunity to design games. Like myself, even though I'm producer, I have designed 7, maybe 8 games in the span of these 9 months.
Okay, so these are games that are designed for Funko Games.
Yep, for Funko Games.
So wait, how many? Okay, so wait, I had 3 of your games coming out next year. How many games that you've
Uh-huh.
designed are coming out next year? What other, like, are there 2 more in there or what?
So yeah, if I counted the Funko Games, then I would say definitely 4, but it might be upward of 7.
That's crazy.
Within the 12-month range. Yeah. So they're, smaller games, but still I'm making these games, and like everybody can contribute to the ideas. They may say, hey, we want to make a game about X. Throw your ideas at the board, and then whichever one the idea people like the most, that one sticks. They're like, go make a prototype, see what comes out of it. So it's really, the description is basically the project management, the development of the game, but you will be dipping your hands in all of the boxes. You're just gonna design, and you may be trying to shore up the prototype, because we have in-house graphic designers too. But in the meantime, we have our own studio where we can print stuff out, cut it out, make these prototypes to go, which is really cool. So yes, that is.
So I guess so two different questions come to mind.
Yeah.
One question is, and so my background outside of games is it's video games, and in a video game studio, it's a similar dynamic in there where, people are working together, different roles and responsibility, but everyone's sort of actively contributing through the length of the project. And there are times when you're at a video game company when you'll be like, hey, we're going to do a new game. What ideas, or we need a new mechanic, whatever. So that kind of contribution, I think, is pretty natural in video games. Do people ask you, or is there any tension around, like, because obviously, and you don't have to tell me anything about how their back end and their deals work, but when you do work on your own, like Book of Villainy, Kickstarter, live right now, a couple more days, and your other titles, you ostensibly own them and you're licensing them or whatever that deal is. Whereas in some ways, when you're working for a company, and you're there and you're making stuff, it's sort of all inherently owned by that company, right? You're part of the team, and like the way you describe it makes it sound like a very positive thing you're really enjoying. Mm-hmm. But I feel like some people feel like, do you ever feel like there's like you don't own it and they're taking away what you own, or do you ever feel like you want to? How do you deal with like, oh, that's a great idea. Should I put it in the other bucket, or do I want it in this bucket? Like what? How do you feel about that sort of topic, and does it like come up in discussion?
Yeah. So that's something that's really important whenever you consider if you can do a job like that, or I guess work for a bigger company. For me personally, when I started out, I thought I'd be, kind of heartbroken about that kind of a thing. But actually, I really just enjoy making the games. I enjoy being able to like fully concentrate on that without having to concentrate on the business side, concentrate on the pitching. And, honestly, I'm being paid for my time. So, whether the game makes it or not, the time spent is still paid. Sure. And then like actually having my name on it isn't that important, because if I worked on the game, I can easily say, hey, I was the lead designer on this, or hey, I was the lead producer on this. There's you can easily say that. You can say you're involved with the game, or anything like that. But just needing my name on the box, while it's great for my other 3 games, I'm being fulfilled in different ways because I am able to work in games professionally for Funko Games.
Right.
But it's definitely something you have to ask yourself if you were interested in pursuing a position like that, because it contributes to the atmosphere in the studio. Everyone is able to like spitball ideas and help on everybody else's projects because they're not possessive of the projects that they're working on.
Right.
And that's like very important to creating like a nice healthy atmosphere where you're not afraid to fail and you're not afraid of, like sharing ideas, and it just creates like this really nice synergy. So Yeah, definitely know where you stand on that. It's a personal choice, but for me, I just really I love that I get to wake up and, I could get assigned an IP that I never in a million years thought I'd get to make a game for, and then it's just sitting in my lap, and it's,
Yeah, it is
that's
certainly the IP range at Funko is like outrageous. Even, I mean, I
yeah,
worked at Disney for a while, and that's a pretty big range, but that's just one slot in the other 100 slots you guys get to touch.
yeah,
Okay, so that was one question. Sort of on the other side, not a lot of what you described as being a game producer, which is in line with what I would have expected. But that like really I think describes what it is to be the Kickstarter person, right? Like
yeah,
it's all of the jobs about the designs there, and then being on time, the development, bringing it to the factory. So it's building the skill set that would be like prime skill set to have if you're like I'm going to do my own Kickstarter.
yeah.
Though it doesn't have the own the business financial side at the end, but the actual
Mhm.
production work is there. Like, do you feel has it opened your eyes to the idea of maybe one day doing your own Kickstarter, or are you more like, nah, I can do it here. That this is the
Mhm.
part of the job I don't like. I like the designing part. Like, how do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, no, I definitely do not want to run a Kickstarter. Now, I don't know, 80-year-old Fertessa may, have a lot more energy towards Kickstarter, but current me is not excited about having to deal with shipping and angry customers and, just the roller coaster that is a Kickstarter. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
I
well,
really
and
just enjoy the design aspect and I guess controlling the big picture of like how it's supposed to look. But when it comes to the business end of it, I just want to just pass that on.
yeah, well, I mean, and I think that's another really cool aspect of being an internal producer. Again,
Hmm.
my relationship to it is much more in the video game space,
Hmm.
but it you can sort of have that sense of enjoyment, engagement with what you're building, even if at the end of the day,
Hmm.
Disney owns it or whatever, right? When you're working on when you're working on a Star Wars game, right? At the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's like, well, of course you don't know Star Wars. I mean, that was what
Yeah. Right.
Lucas doesn't even own Star Wars anymore. But cool. I mean, so like, what a awesome like story. I mean, I think the or journey, because it's real. It's not really a story, but journey in that you're like it's exciting to have the chance to play your products, right? Like that's the only thing that hasn't really quite happened yet
Yeah.
outside of the folks who have been play testing and meeting at conventions and that kind of thing is sort of the market getting a taste for your games. Out of curiosity, since you've made those three titles and you've done all these other ones, do you have a sense of what makes a game your game? Like, do you have a design style, or are they, if you play all three of these games, is it going to be just like wildly different and nothing? Like, is there some?
Yeah, they're going to be wildly different because these games are, all three of them were made on kind of a theoretical what if. Like, what if I make my first game? What would that look like? Or what if I made a cooperative game I liked? Or what if I tried my first co-design? Like what does that look like? So they are wildly, wildly different. But I think all of my games, I try and center them around humor, fun. So writing wise, you might find that I lean towards the humorous side if I can have them in there. Like, even with Wicked and Wise, where it's trick taking, it's a mouse and a dragon, a very cute mouse and a dragon, are the roles that the characters are. I'm not characters, the players are playing. Oops, kicked my dog, sorry. But yeah, and they wrote a whole story for that. So yeah, at most you would see a tie-in with the writing, but they play entirely differently. So hopefully one of them suits your tastes. I hope you all check them out.
Yeah, well, I am in a fortunate position, which is I have done Kickstarter previews for not all, but I don't know, three-quarters of Carla's stuff. And I've met her a bunch of times. So she actually independent. She didn't know we were talking, and she reached out to me about
Yeah.
this game, and I was like, wait a minute. So I do think I'm going to get a copy of that. And
What's up?
am I maybe, is that Beth Sobel? Is she the artist or somebody else?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so
Okay.
cool.
I just didn't want to be wrong, but like, yeah, who's incredible. And I've worked with Beth on a number of titles for Pencil First Games, but so
Yeah.
I'm super excited to check it out. So I will have a preview, but it will just be one of the many faces of. And then the Funko Games, I'm interested. I look forward to seeing it breaking out a little bit more, which is what I would expect to have happen. I was not what are those called? The like IP fighting, like Harry Potter battler, like the tactics games, the miniature tactics game line of games they put out didn't really land perfectly for me. But like I felt like that was just like the start of the engine churning to like really do like much more inventive and exciting new titles. So I'm just going to assume that's the case, and I look forward to it next year.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. We've put out some already really great games. Like I really have fun with Haunted Mansion. I haven't gotten to play through our entire library yet, so I'm still discovering stuff myself. But
I haven't played Haunted Mansion.
That's my current favorite, and a lot of people, Fast and Furious just came out, and a lot of people are enjoying that and giving that love. So mines will hopefully be out in some fall. I would say around fall, in which then I could talk about them.
Yeah. I'm just. No, but thanks so much but that's exciting, and thanks so much for being on and sharing your story. I think it's really, or journey, whatever. I think it's really like it has the hallmarks of a lot of like the things that, especially like hearing that you consider yourself an introvert and getting out and doing those things and finding ways to do it right is such a big deal. But so thanks so much for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Glad to finally meet you face to face.
Absolutely. Well, dude, we're actually not that far in the grand scheme of things, in that there's some convention overlap we'll have, is what I'm saying.
Yes, all these new conventions I'm going to be exposed to.
Yeah, it'll be great. Anyway, thanks for being on, and thanks everyone for watching. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.